Welcome back to my channel. I've got a lull in my player character tokens at the moment, and so I am resuming the randomly generated monsters and going back to D&D for this. First, let's roll up the level and difficulty. 9 and 2. A fairly high level with a moderate challenge. Let's see. The Grey Slaad. Quite the chaotic entity to fight. A resident of the plane of Limbo, the ever-changing landscape and heart of chaos itself. I guess we'll need to roll up what the region this chaotic frog's area of Limbo is like. I found a table with plenty of variety to roll on, and 5d100 should do the trick. Let it roll for a bit, and stop. Solid Earth, Fire Pocket, and Water Pocket. Odd that all 5 are within 13 digits of each other, not very chaotic at all, but we could still work with this. For the Grey Slaad's token, I wanted to craft the fire and water in ways I've done in the past. For the earth part, however, I took stone and haphazardly sliced it apart to create the ground upon which it stood. I also tried working with the triangle since there were 3 elements, but by the end, I ended up swapping to a pentagon shape solely due to the triangle being hard to see. I also learned after making the whole piece and while working on the video that apparently I used the Death Slaad's artwork. By the end, it is indeed the Grey Slaad's art from the monster manual. Whenever I make fire digitally, I always make it in Illustrator first, as creating with vertices helps me control its flow better. I'll create it with about 4 different colors, then bring it back into Photoshop and use filters to blur the top and scatter the base. Since I started this series, I wanted to get a bit of the lore or mechanics of the monsters in somewhere. I think to keep the time shorter for the video, I'd wedge it into where there is the most downtime of discussion. Since I summarized the fire part quickly, let's get into what makes one Grey Slaad such a challenge for a party of level 9s. All Slaad come from Limbo, and the Grey Slaad specifically is one of the higher-ups compared to the vast majority. They are specifically a evolved green Slaad, and they have a mountain of spells and abilities including plane shift, invisibility, fly, and major image that makes them quite the challenge. They are incredibly resilient with 5 types of resistances, advantage against spells and magic effects, and regeneration of 10 hit points per round. The Grey Toad seems to have the ability to control the field of battle with efficiency on its own, but paired with any of its brethren would make for an incredibly challenging and engaging fight. While I created the fire, I thought about how to push the artwork further. I ended up going with giving it a ring of yellow around the region where the fire was. It adds a tiny bit of detail that really helps push the narrative of the token just a bit further. I also lit the rocks at the bottom in the same manner. While I don't think it's the best I could have done, with how small a medium creature is, those small details will hardly be seen if I spent a lot of time on them. The water part took me a bit of time, as I had to paint its direction exactly how I envisioned it. I'll start with a base shape, but I'll pull in a watery orb with lots of color variants so I can use it as a color guide. The water needs to feel as if it's floating, as Limbo lacks gravity except around large chunks, and even then, those parts are prone to changing on a whim due to the chaotic nature of the realm. So the water is structured like a reversed waterfall, with small spheres breaking off here and there on a whim, like bubbles. Now, we get to where I realized some errors and went back to revisit the piece. I had made a few changes already, having swapped to the pentagon-shaped token and giving the earth section cracks to show the color beneath it. But now the art will swap from the death Slaad to the gray Slaad. I like the death Slaad's look, but the gray's form allows for more diversity and for me to play with the token more due to its outstretched arm and varied leg placement. After moving over effects from one Slaad to another, I tinkered around with them more and added a tiny bit of blue for the water reflecting on the right side of the body. The fire-lit area is still warmer by comparison, but the blue glow helps with highlighting the Slaad's height, as it's only towards the bottom right where the main body of the water is located. Finally, I copied the head and made a second layer of it to cast a shadow over the body, and to alter the yellow lighting a bit just to add a tiny bit more depth. But with that, this chaotic toad from Limbo is complete. Since the Slaadi have their own language, and there's no description of it, I decided to take a stab at it myself. To better understand Limbo and the Slaadi, there are going to be two video links down below. One is the Runesmith, whose content I find to be always entertaining. The other is MrRhexx, who covered all the lore of the Slaadi he could find, including what comes after the Death Slaad in terms of rank. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this, please hit subscribe and like the video. The next token is likely to be another player character's, as I have a really cool concept for a Pathfinder 2 Bone Oracle.